Hello, everyone. This is Under the Mayo, and I'm back for another episode of Profiles in Gaming Enthusiasm. And I'm joined by my special guest, Forever King. Forever King, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, things are pretty good over here too. So we've never talked before, but I've known your work in Mortal Kombat since 2011, and I know that you knew my stuff back then, at least from the Kenshi period around 2012. But yeah, we've never actually talked about something. Occasionally, maybe on a forum, a back and forth about a tech conversation or something. So it's nice to actually get you on here and have a conversation about fighting games.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember you used to post a lot of Kenshi Tech back in the day. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun stuff. Those were inspiring times, the MK9 days. So for the people who are listening to this who don't know who are you, and what are you known for in the fighting game community?
So, what's up, everyone? I guess my real name is Christian Quiles. My gamer tag that I go by in tournaments is Forever King. I've loved Mortal Kombat my whole entire life. My very first video game I ever played was Mortal Kombat 2 on a Sega Genesis
That
back in 1995 when I was like 3 years old.
No way, really? Your
Um,
first? See, that was one of my questions. Was what was your first fighting game? But actually, Mortal Kombat 2 was your first game.
Yes. So, they say that, you hear people say that most humans' first memories are from when they're like 5 years old or something like that. My first memories are from when I was three. And my first memories are of playing the Sega Genesis. I was playing Mortal Kombat 2, Sonic the Hedgehog, Vector Man,
Yeah.
but Mortal Kombat 2 was always my favorite out of all the Sega Genesis games that I had. And that led me to play all Mortal Kombat after that. And I pretty much loved them all and, put hundreds of hours into each of them.
What would be your favorite old Mortal Kombat? Like talking like when I say old Mortal Kombat, I'm thinking one, two, three, and four.
Classics. So probably MK2. No, that was my very first one. I do love MK3 a lot, but I would say MK2 edges it out a little bit. I like the slow paced uh traditional game style that MK2 has,
All right.
but I do like MK3 a lot as well.
Which game has a roster? Which one that do you prefer? The roster.
Hmm. I mean, I guess Armageddon would be cheating because it just has everyone.
Sure.
Same as Trilogy. Uh, I feel like so MK9 is, I don't know if this is already a future question, but MK9 is my favorite Mortal Kombat game out of all of them. And when you look at its roster, it pretty much has all of the classic characters from MK1, 2, and 3,
Yes.
plus some new characters on top of that with, Quan Chi and Kenshi and stuff like that. So I guess MK9, you know,
Yeah. Well, that's the dream roster. That's just like that's all the classics put together. It's
exactly.
only missing like Rain, right? Like I think that's the only person that's not in there.
MK9 DLC was Rain.
Oh, that's right. Wow, I just blanked on that. I was thinking
Yeah.
Kenshi and Freddy and Scarlet, but that's right. It was Rain. I don't know how that slipped my mind. Yeah, he
Yeah, he
wasn't
was
that bad.
he was the very first. Well, he was the second DLC character. But yeah, I did like Rain a lot. Rain, fun fact, he's actually my favorite ninja. I like all the ninjas, but Rain is probably my top one favorite ninja.
Sure. So is MK9 the first game that got you into competitive Mortal Kombat, or were you involved in the 3D days?
No, so MK9 was the very first one I competed in. MK versus DC, I got like the competitive mindset. There was no tournaments for MK versus DC, but I played over 10,000 matches online and, you know, I played with the intent of getting as good as I possibly can and playing as strong of players online as I possibly can. So I guess you could technically, I didn't really like compete, but I had the mindset of becoming the best I could possibly be in MK versus DC in that transition to MK9 when that came out.
When did you start thinking of fighting games in terms of like matchups, footsies, frame data, and all that kind of stuff.
That was late MK9.
Yeah.
Fun fact, so when I was actually going to tournaments in MK9 competing, I didn't even know frame data at first. I used to go to tournaments, and even my first couple tournaments, I got top eight,
Yeah.
but I literally didn't know what frame data was. Like, there would be people that they probably just assumed I knew frame data because I'm there competing and I got top eight, and they're like, "Hey, King, what's your 4-2 on block?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "What's 4-2 on block?" And I'm like, "I, what
What
are
do
you
you mean?
talking about?" Yeah. And they're like, "What's the frame data? Like, how plus or minus is it?" And I'm thinking they're speaking like some foreign language. Like, I literally have no idea what they're talking about. I didn't even know frame data existed.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "What do you mean by plus or minus on block?" And they're like, "Oh, every character has frame data, and that's how you know when it's your turn to like attack back." And I didn't even know that in my first couple tournaments. I actually, so my very first major was MLG Columbus, which I got ninth at, and then Power Up 2012, I got top eight, and then Evo 2012, that was only a month or two after that, I got top eight at. And when I got top eight at Evo 2012, I didn't know frame data. I was just playing, like, I played the game so much, I kind of knew it inside and out. Like, I had a feel for when it was your turn to attack
Yeah.
back and retaliate and stuff, but I didn't know no numbers at all for frame data. I just, I just played a lot. It's just pretty crazy to think about. So
Yeah, that you made it
I had
that
to
far.
play that. Yeah, I had to play that game so much that even without knowing frame data, I still had an idea of like, oh, when he does this attack, I shouldn't attack back. When he does this attack, it's my turn to retaliate.
Right. You just didn't have a
But
way.
eventually,
You just didn't have a way to verbalize those concepts.
exactly.
Yeah.
But eventually, like a little bit after Evo 2012 is when I started learning frame data because Somberness had posted it on Test Your Might.
Oh Lord,
And
Lord,
I was like, man,
praise
yeah,
somberness.
Lord Somberness. I was like, dude, this is a whole new way to look at fighting games. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't like I feel like if the frame data was in the pause menu, I would have learned it, but that didn't become a thing until Injustice 1,
Yeah.
you know. But if it was in the pause menu in MK9 or MK vs DC, I would have learned it. But back in those days, you had to look online for that stuff. And
And
if no one told you to look for it, you wouldn't even know to look for it.
well, a lot of us didn't know. I mean, I was in the same boat as you. I was not thinking about it. I was only thinking in terms of safe or punishable.
Unsafe.
That's as
Yeah,
far as
exactly.
I went. And like I didn't know. I didn't even know that being negative meant that something was uh, that didn't mean that it was unsafe, right? Like if you do a string that's -3 on block, you're still safe, right? But I didn't
Exactly.
really grab that concept. Yeah, I thought that you had to be neutral or plus to be safe, and like the whole frame data thing just
Same.
completely blew my mind because I was in there MK9 and I was in the same boat. I talked about this on the Slips interview. I used to watch that. Remember the Silent One Tom Brady podcast from those early months of MK9? And
I don't think I watched it.
okay, well, that was like the first video broadcast that we were watching, and every week or so, it was Silent One and Tom Brady. They would get on. They would talk about one character, and so in those first months, I was watching those, and he was talking about Johnny Cage, and he was like, "Hey, so after you do the force balls, then you're plus 16." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And it
Yeah,
was just such a cool way to start learning about games, and now you can't unsee it, right? You can't
exactly.
stop thinking like that. You watch any other fighting game, if you don't play it, someone does a jab and you're like, I wonder if that's plus.
Exactly. Mortal Kombat and Injustice, they're my main fighting games. Those are the ones I compete in. But I love fighting games in general. I pretty much have tried them all for the most part. I played Dragon Ball Fighters, Tekken, Smash, Soul Calibur,
Okay.
and I play them all casually. Marvel vs. Capcom, and yeah, when I play those games after learning frame data, I don't look up the frame data for those games, but as I'm playing them, I'm like trying to figure out, or I'm wondering like, what's minus or what's plus. And it's actually interesting that you said earlier, before you even knew about frame data, you just assumed if something was safe, it's probably neutral or plus. That's the way I thought of it too.
Hmm.
Like, I wasn't thinking like something can be negative but still be safe.
Yeah.
I just assumed that everything that was negative was unsafe, like punishable, and anything that wasn't punishable was like neutral or plus. That's kind of like I think if you don't know about frame data, that's just like what everyone assumes at the
Yeah.
start.
I mean, it's in the word negative, right? That means bad, right?
Even before you start using the words negative and positive, it's like your mind just defaults to, oh, this string or this special move, you see a lot of recovery on it, so it must be punishable. But this string or this special move, you can block in time, so that means maybe you can retaliate in time, but you actually can't because it's negative. But you wouldn't know that unless someone told you or you search it up.
These are concepts that are difficult to explain to someone who doesn't play fighting games, right? Whenever I try to talk about like what I'm working on with a strategy and I'm talking about frame data, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because I mean, how do you explain this stuff, right? You're talking about animation frames per second and all this stuff. And the only way that I was able to explain it to some people is I immediately go to Sub Zero and I say, okay, well, Sub Zero throws this ice ball, and if you block it, you can hurt him, right? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, that means it's very, very negative. And there's some things that are a little bit negative, so you can't hit him, but you can move before he can move. And like, I'm able to kind of break it down like that and get non-fighting game players to understand what the hell I'm talking about. But they are really complex systems. And once you see the matrix behind fighting games, you appreciate them. I don't know. You appreciate them like you had never been able to appreciate them before, and you're even able to appreciate other genres of games in a new way.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like there's people that I taught, like my cousins and close friends and stuff that I taught frame data and taught fighting games. When they go to play like adventure games or platformers and stuff, they'll still be like, "Oh, that attack has a lot of hit stun," or
Mm-hmm.
this move has a lot of recovery or stuff like that. And it's not even a fighting game; it's like a platformer or adventure game. So we're still using that fighting game terminology in other genres. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it totally applies. I mean, my channel has been really focused on Doom Eternal this year, and one of the things I talk about with a lot of other players in that game is how much it makes us feel like we're playing a fighting game. I talk to Ketchup about this a lot, and that like it's a shooter, but there's also footsies in it. it's and there's like so much space control and so many different demons that have different speeds and weapons and maneuverability, and so it's like learning matchups. It's I don't know. It's been a really interesting experience to play a shooter that makes me feel like I'm playing Mortal Kombat in a way.
Yeah, that does sound interesting.
So you mentioned that you were teaching. So you have students that train Mortal Kombat with you, right? Can you get into that? I remember seeing right before MK11 was coming out that you announced that you were having a teaching program. How's that going?
Yeah, so towards the end of Injustice 2, I ended up opening a Patreon, which is basically this website where people can pay you and then you can do different things. And, all different Patreons have different options, but mine is specifically about fighting games. And, people can sign up and I'll train them. And, there's 5 different tiers. And, the different tiers are different prices, but depending on what you get, you know, you can either pay a lot and get like hour-long training sessions, or you can pay a little bit and maybe just get like short, play sessions. Um, so yeah, in the past 3 or 4 years, I've probably took on over 50, 60 different students, you know,
Wow,
all different levels.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's been an interesting road, you know. There's some people, they're already high level. They just sign up because they just want to play against me and test their skills. And then there's some people that they're, you know, like mid-level and they're trying to bridge that gap that they might have like what do you call it? Like a plateau where they feel like they're kind of good, but they don't know what it takes to get to that next level. So I would help them, you know, go from a mid-level player to a high-level player. And then there's even players that they don't even know frame data. They barely know nothing at all, and they
Yeah.
just sign up just to learn the basics. So I've gotten players of all skill levels, and it's been a lot of fun, like teaching people about fighting games and you know how you were saying that you wanted to teach your friends frame data and stuff like that. I've had to have that conversation over, you know, 20 times by now with different people. Basically, how I start it, I try to make it as simple as possible. I'm like, listen, there's 60 frames in a second. So, you know, 10 frames is like 1/6 of a second. So the fastest attack in the game is usually 6 frame startup. That's like every NRS game for the most part. So if something's like -5 or less, that's generally considered safe on block. You know, if something's like -6 or more, that's generally considered unsafe. And then, you know, just go from there. And they, it's crazy how much people improve when they don't know frame data and then you teach them frame data. And, you know, they go in training mode for a few hours on their own time and then they come back to you. It's like a whole brand new game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really fun to teach people. I have a lot of teaching experience, and sitting down with my MK9 friends back in the day and being like, hey, so I'm learning this frame data stuff, and I think you need to be learning it too. And sitting down with them and then showing them, hey, you know, if you do, like, because they would just do like their one combo, right? Without thinking about anything else. And I'd be like, hey, well, actually, if you do this combo, it leaves you with advantage. And like, because then you start thinking about that kind of stuff, and it affects everything, not just the strings you're using to be safe or plus, but it changes your spacing, it changes the moves that you prefer to use, how you end your combos. It kind of does has an effect on everything.
Oh yeah. Like I've had students that, for example, they might be doing like 35% combos, but it's barely any advantage. And I'll tell them, instead of doing that 35% combo, do this 30% combo that has so much advantage it guarantees you a mix up afterwards.
Yeah,
And they're like, why would I ever do a combo that's 5% less than my combo? And I'm like, well, if you do this combo with more advantage, you have more of a chance of hitting a whole new combo after that, you know?
yep.
So like you're sacrificing the damage for a setup that can get a whole nother combo. So would you rather get two 30% combos or one 35% combo, you know?
Yeah. It's not
It gets
guaranteed.
it,
It's not guaranteed, but it's part of
but it's a
playing.
chance. Yeah. And that 5% difference is worth the chance to maybe play that mind game to maybe open your opponent up to hit them again, you know?
Yeah, and in a Mortal Kombat game, you'll make up that 5% in chip damage even if you guess wrong.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, there was I tried to help this one guy learn to play Injustice. He was my neighbor, and the hardest time I've ever had trying to get someone to play an NRS game is when the only game they know how to play is Smash. And that
Yeah, it's a lot different.
it's so hard to get them like into the right kinds of play, because I would watch him and he'd play Smash and he plays really good, and then he'd come over and I tried to teach him Deathstroke, and I was like, okay, we're just gonna do something really simple. We're gonna do down one sword flip. That's all we're gonna do on block. Down one sword flip. Just a quick special cancel, right? Hour and a half.
Hmm.
He couldn't do it once,
Did
and
you teach him the shortcut?
well, yeah, I tried to. It was an hour and a half, King. I tried, I tried so many ways to explain it and to show it, but I couldn't get him to execute a single down one sword flip in an hour and a half. And I was
I'm
like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is the game for you to learn, buddy.
I'm not sure if you know what shortcut I'm talking about. Like,
Like pressing
for
down and
example,
one at the same time, and then using the negative edge to go forward and one to get the sword flip.
exactly.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'll trust me, man. I tried everything.
Because
Like,
if you press, so sword flip is down 4-3. So if you press down one, that down one is the same down as the down and down 4-3.
mm-hmm.
So if you just press down one and then press four
Forward
three
three.
really fast, you can get,
I know it's
you know,
pretty. I know it's pretty easy, isn't it? but,
yeah.
but it just wasn't his day, man. I
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
yeah. So you were into Mortal Kombat at a very early age. Would you say that generally you were attracted to more like darker, more violent games as you grew up, or was Mortal Kombat an exception to that?
I liked all type of games. Like, so Mortal Kombat was my favorite video game, series out of anything. But, I played like Super Mario, which is like kid friendly. I played Pokemon, Crash Bandicoot. Um, Basically, I played all genres of games, regardless of the, what do you call it, the age restriction or whatever. Um, it's not like I preferred mature games. Something about Mortal Kombat I just loved a lot. But even if there was like a really good rated E game like Mario, I could still play it and love it. But Mortal Kombat did give me a love for fighting games in general. So I pretty much any type of fighting game, no matter how good or bad it was, I loved it. I had like all the fighting games on PS1. There were some weird ones like Bio Freaks and Evo Zone and fighting games that probably people never heard of before, but it was a fighting game, so I loved it.
Star Gladiator.
I haven't tried that one.
I played the hell out of that one. Did you have a favorite character early on in Mortal Kombat that's stayed with you all these years?
So when I was a kid, Scorpion was always my favorite character. So all the way from MK2 until like MK Armageddon, Scorpion was my main in every single game. Kung Lao was always my secondary.
All right.
But as I got older, um, I kind of seen Scorpion was like, I guess you can say stereotypical for people to like him. Like he's the front cover of like every game,
Yeah.
and you know, people that aren't even super huge Mortal Kombat fans, they're just kind of low key Mortal Kombat fans. Their favorite character is Scorpion. So I was just like, you know, Scorpion's way too oversaturated by so many people. So then I ended up going to my secondary Kung Lao and MK9 X11. Kung Lao ended up being my main in those games. So he was always my second favorite growing up, but he ended up becoming my main just because Scorpion was just too liked by too many people. I didn't want to have the same favorite character, as everyone.
Sure. I
Yeah.
associate you with Lao. I cannot separate your name from Kung Lao.
Yeah,
I mean, I do
it's
associate it a
pretty
little bit
funny.
now with Garrus, and because of, or I don't know if you continuing to play Garrus, but the first months of the game, I know you were playing Garrus, and
Yeah, I am.
you still are. Okay, cool. And then your katana counterpick Kenshi, which was just insane.
MK9.
Those were some crazy days, man. You
Go
got good.
undefeated
You
in that
got
matchup.
you put in some time on Kenshi, and after a while, your Kenshi in tournament was quite dangerous and very adaptable. It was really good.
So a lot of people just stick Kenshi at number two in MK9. They're like, oh, Cabal is the best and Kenshi's the second best. But I guess I have like an unpopular opinion that I say Cyrax is number two and Kenshi's number three. Because I have a strong feeling that Cyrax beats Kenshi in that game. Because, the 3-3-4 being, +5 on block or whatever, and that works on big hitbox characters, which Kenshi's one of them. So, and then, Cyrax with the 90% one bar combos.
Yeah, I played that
If
matchup a lot. and with my team. And I don't know if I feel Cyrax wins. I mean, I never played it on such a high level, but I did research it a
Yeah,
lot. And but man, like every single
it's
one of
tough,
your
dude.
projectile attacks leaves Kenshi's just standing there, just waiting for a net,
Exactly.
just waiting. And it's pretty painful when that happens. And the matchup that I hate the most with Kenshi is Smoke. I just absolutely hate it. I mean, you can bully Smoke with the charge, but God, I mean, similar to Cyrax, so like you cannot use Teleflurry. You can't use the
Yeah,
charge outside of its range. You will get smoke bombed and you'll die.
the thing about Smoke is his stuff was kind of inconsistent. Even if you were super high, like, even if you were the best Smoke player in the world,
Sure.
no Smokes could hit his reset 100% of the time. Whereas Cyrax, his stuff was actually consistent. Like if you could practice it and perfect it, you could hit it
And
consistently.
so many variations
So
of it.
yes. So and that 334, a lot of people don't know about that 334 connecting on Kenshi's hitbox. So once he's +5, then he can go command grab or 1-2 hit confirm into net.
Why did he have a command
So
grab? Why did he have a command
who
grab
knows?
that gave him another command grab?
Yeah, it's plus enough to where you get the jump. And it's crazy that before they nerfed it, so they nerfed the hit advantage because the hit advantage was so much before. You used to shoot out the unblockable bomb
I
and then get a
remember that.
guaranteed. Yeah, that was insane. Like, I guess we have to we have to give NRS a little slack because it was their first competitive game. You know, they weren't that good at balancing just yet. You can't really expect anyone to be perfect at balancing on their first attempt. But yeah, the fact that his command grab was like +80 on hit or something, and then he could shoot, yeah, he could shoot the medium bomb, which was unblockable, and then he can guarantee the 2-2, and then you were just stuck, and then he got like a 40% launcher off of that meterless.
It's
Yeah, that was
absurd.
pretty insane. Yeah, he like a lot of people don't even know, but Cyrax was probably top 3 the whole entire game's life, literally.
I believe that. Yeah. It's just they just had to figure out what all the setups were and how all those resets work. They didn't know them all from the start, and then they did,
Yeah,
and then it was game over.
it, they kept nerfing, and people just kept finding more shit. And even after all the nerfs, he got nerfed like over 10 times, and he's still, in my opinion, number 2 in the game. In most people's opinion, he's number 3, but I
I
have him
I'm with you on
number
that.
2 over Kenshi.
I'm okay with saying Cyrax is 2 and Kenshi's 3. And if someone says no, it's the other way around, all I would say is okay. I can respect that view too.
Yeah, it's the main thing that makes it debatable is Kenshi wins more matchups, which I'll always agree. Kenshi bodies more characters,
Yeah.
but Cyrax loses less matchups because, in my opinion, Cyrax only loses to Cabal and no one else. That's his one and only losing matchup.
Hmm.
Whereas Kenshi, he loses to Kung Lao, he loses to Cabal, he might lose to Cyrax, he might lose to Smoke. So like, even if he bodies more characters, the fact that he has potentially that many losing matchups, you
Against the
know,
top tier too.
yeah,
It's not like he loses
common characters.
to a random Baraka or something. He loses to the characters that are at the top of the tier list that you see all the time. Yeah, so
Exactly.
that it makes it a complicated topic. There's I want to do a video about my thoughts about the state of Mortal Kombat. I do, but I also don't want to make a video like just sound like something like I'm complaining that I don't like new Mortal Kombat. But
Yeah, I feel you.
there's there's like a purity to MK9 where I know the game is really unbalanced. I get that, and it's glitchy. But there's like a purity to its design, and it just feels so smooth to play. And MK9 could be fixed by fixing the glitches and some balance patches. The game itself is just like immaculate in my opinion. It just works so well. I mean, and then as we went on through the rest of the series, I feel like maybe they've gotten better at balancing, and they've gotten like better at working out their glitches and stuff like that. But there's something about it that just doesn't feel right to me, and I feel like as MK goes on, it becomes more and more like Injustice and less like MK. How do you feel about that?
MK9 is my favorite fighting game of all time. I feel like it's so, I guess a good way to describe it is like free form or like free flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Since you can cancel your dashes at multiple points, like you could do a 1/4 dash, a half dash, a 3/4 dash, you can control your movement so well, which is always very important in fighting games to be able to control your movement. And since you can control your movement so well, even if you're playing a really bad matchup, for example, like, Shiva versus Cabal was considered like 8-2 or maybe even 9-1. But I've beaten some decent Cabals with Shiva because I have so much control over the movement that if I'm a better player than someone, I'm going to abuse my game knowledge and my, better movement, and I'm still going to overcome the bad matchup. Whereas the later we go in the series, like the Injustices or MKX or MK11, if something is a bad matchup, it feels way harder to overcome because since the movement isn't as good as MK9, you're kind of forced to deal with the things that make it a bad matchup, if that makes sense. Like a 6-4 in MKX feels harder than like a 7-3 in MK9 because a really bad matchup in MK9, at least you can move around and you can backdash. You can cancel your backdash. So like if someone's trying to cross you up, you could do like a half backdash and anti-air them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, in MKX and MK11 and both Injustices, you can't really cancel your dashes. You have to commit. So if someone's trying to cross you up, you kind of just have to hold that. You can't like do a little micro backdash and anti-air them, or if someone's like jumping from like far away, you can't do like a micro forward dash and anti-air them. You don't have as much control over the neutral, so you have to deal with the character's tools more. So it makes the harder matchups even harder. Whereas MK9, it feels like if a matchup is really hard, you could still outplay them with your movement. Like we seen Jeremiah beat, GGA Jeremiah was a good Shiva. We've seen him beat a Cabal in tournament, and we've seen Tom Brady use Sub-Zero to beat like Cyraxes and Kung Laos and stuff. But when you go into the later games, it's starting to get rarer and rarer to see people overcome bad matchups.
Yeah,
The movement
I'm with you on
honestly
that.
makes a huge difference,
Yeah.
especially because I don't know if you're really into Smash, but like Super Smash Bros. Melee that was introduced in 2001, people still play that competitively to this day, 20 years later. And you know why? It's because the movement.
Because of the movement.
It has the best movement out of all the Smash games. So the better the movement, the more that ensures that the better player will overcome the lower level player, which makes consistency. And people always like consistency. If you play a game a lot and you're good at it and you practice a lot, you want to be able to beat people that you feel like you're better than. But with MK11, I feel like that's the game I feel the most inconsistent in. Like, it doesn't matter how much I practice, I feel like it's hard to consistently beat lower level players. Whereas MK9, I was super confident. Like, if I was better than you, I felt like there was no chance for you to beat me. You know what I mean?
It felt like in MK9 there was a lot less of a guessing game involved. And there's always going to be mind games and, is he going to wake up armor? Is he not? Like, there's always that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think I talked about this with Slips. I'm sure I'm going to be... everyone listening on multiple episodes of this where I talk to MK players, you just get ready for me to repeat things, okay? The thing that I think makes one of the biggest differences, apart from the dash canceling and the movement, is the meter burn system. And I'm really tired of the meter burn system because it means that you don't have to commit to things. It turns special attacks into mix-ups on block, where if you played Scorpion in Mortal Kombat 9, you had teleport and you had EX teleport, right? Teleport was punishable, EX teleport was safe. And like you chose which one you wanted to do in the moment and you did it and you committed to it. But in all the other Mortal Kombats, Scorpion can do teleport and he can do meter burn teleport. But meter burn teleport comes after doing regular teleport. You do teleport and then you make the decision to meter burn it. So when that comes in on block, you see the teleport coming in at you, and now you have to think, is he going to meter burn it or is he not going to? And it turns every special attack into a 50-50 mix-up on block, and all they have to do is burn the meter to mix you up. And I really don't like that. It's been in there since Injustice, and it feels like it just keeps getting worse.
Theoretically, with that stuff, you can like extend your block a little bit to past the point where they can possibly meter burn, so you can cover both options.
Sure,
but that's just no human's going to do that.
It's just one example. I mean, it could be Devora's Ovipositor Rush, right? Like she can do it, and then she can murder, and like she can do it, and if you block it, she can just meter burn it to make it safe. And
exactly.
if you think she's not gonna meter burn it, then maybe you try to punish it, and then she does meter burn it, and it hits you, and it just turns so many specials into mix-ups on block, and it frustrates me. I would rather people just like say I'm gonna do the EX version here, and if it works, it doesn't. If it works, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I prefer that kind of
committing to it.
I'm hoping it comes back. I'm hoping that after 2 Injustices and the last 2 Mortal Kombats, that the meter burn system will go back to a traditional EX meter system. That would get me back into playing it more. And if the distance between the characters wasn't so big. There's the characters' max distance in MK11 feels like Injustice 1 to me. It just feels like there's an ocean of space between them, and it makes the runaway game, it makes the closing space game it makes it uninteresting. It's not that it's hard and that's why it's frustrating. It's just I find it much less interesting because in MK9, because of the block dashing and everything, like getting in on a runaway cabal was like exhilarating. You know what I mean?
Because you're like constantly dashing, ducking. It's more interactive.
Yeah.
Like
it's interactive, exactly. That's what.
Something.
Even if it was a pain in the ass, you were still engaged in it. And then when I'm playing Buzz Devora against Liu Kang, and he's just walking back and throwing fireballs, and I'm just like, oh god, gotta get in. I don't know. I haven't played competitively since October last year. I still watch tournaments. I do still enjoy watching it competitively, but I can't get back into playing it.
I mean, I know, like, I would like for it to just be MK9, but with the graphics and
the characters,
effects, of like a newer like MK12. But I feel like MK9 system was so good. It's kind of like how you were saying earlier, like. Yeah, there's glitches and there was like an imbalance, but the foundation was perfect. Mm-hmm. If they can have like an MK9 foundation, like the MK9 poke system, the MK9 dash system, the MK9 meter system, but the gaps between the tier lists were smaller. There was no like Cabal versus Shiva or no Tenchi versus Jade or nothing like that. But have that like the MK9 system with a more balanced roster and no meter drain glitch.
God, the meter drain glitch was bad.
Yeah.
The input bug, that's what kills me.
Yeah, like you can't if there was no input bug, I would be able to do like Cyrax's corner combos when you do down one net. Mm-hmm. But when I try to do down one net, it gives me teleport. because you can't turn off input shortcuts. That's another thing with MK9. You can't go in the options and turn like release check off and input shortcuts off, stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Quality of life
if you try,
improvements.
yeah, if you try to press like down one and cancel into back three, it'll give you like down back three, like a lot, you know,
Yeah, for those listening,
or down back one.
for those listening, the input bug in Mortal Kombat 9 was an infamous bug where, on when you press down, on the 8th frame after it, if you press an attack button, the game would forget the down input and it would cause your attack to be a standing attack. It was so obnoxious. So you dash in and you'd hit down and you'd hit down and low kick. So you do like a crouching kick. But if you hit those buttons on the wrong frame apart from each other, your character would do a standing kick, and that's a long, slow kick, and it'll get you killed. It gets me killed all the time, man.
So I am really hoping for an overhaul of MK11. Like, it seems like when they do patches, they're doing very minor changes, so they're barely changing the game that much. And with Aftermath and with MK11 Ultimate, I was assuming they were gonna do like a huge balance overhaul, kind of like how MKX to MKXL was. I don't know if you remember that, but
Yeah, that was
that was
big.
like that was a significant change. Like, all the run cancel characters were changed. If you were running and you got hit, your stamina drained.
The armor system got
All
really
all the
modified.
armored launchers. So yeah, it was literally almost a whole different game. I was hoping that would happen with MK11 with the recent patches, but it's still very much the same game as it was before.
Yeah.
So if it was up to me, I would want to do a huge overhaul and make it like a brand new game, kind of like MKX to MKXL. Uh,
That would be
but
nice.
yeah, if it's gonna end up staying the same, the best that I can hope for is at least buff Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn's been bottom one since release,
God.
and yeah, Kung Lao and Shao Kahn are like my top two favorite Mortal Kombat characters of all time. And Kung Lao's good, that's my main. But Shao Kahn he's been in bottom one since day one. So I would like for Shao Kahn to get some decent buffs so he can actually be competitive, viable in tournament. That would be awesome. Yeah, if I can get that, then I wouldn't ask for anything else.
Are you hopeful for an Injustice 3 at some point?
Yeah, I am a huge fan of the Injustice series. Like, you know, I love Mortal Kombat. It's my favorite fighting game franchise of all time, and I'm a big fan of DC. Like, I like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all them. So the fact that you have a DC game made by the creators of Mortal Kombat, and I like the gameplay a lot too. And I do like how, every 2 years they make a new game, and they're flip-flopping between MK and Injustice. So, um, we kind of mix it up, like, MK9 and Justice 1, MKX and Justice 2. Like, it's a brand new experience every 2 years, and it's hard to get bored when each game is so different every 2 years. So I'm a big fan of the Injustice series. Injustice 1 is probably in my top three favorite fighting games of all time. MK9 is my favorite fighting game of all time, but Injustice 1 is probably my second or third favorite.
That's interesting.
So,
Who did you
yeah,
play
Injustice
in
3, I'm
Injustice?
definitely looking forward to.
I don't remember. Who did you play in Injustice?
Batman was my main
That's
in both games.
right. Yeah, that's right, man. Your Batman was sick. Batman in general was crazy.
He's awesome. Like, what I like about Batman, he's kind of a jack of all trades. Like, he's not super dominant in any category. He just has a little bit going for him in every category, like a little bit of zoning, a little bit of rush down, a little bit of setups, a little bit of pressure. Um,
He was like
and
the
I feel like that's kind of like how
Yeah, I was about to say he's like the Kung Lao of Injustice.
yeah, he's got a little bit of everything going for him. So,
Well, King, this has been a pretty cool conversation. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch upon before we call it. This has been pretty nice. Anything else on your mind?
um, pretty much,
Whoa,
um,
whoa, just lost you, man. Your voice just got crazy.
I feel like I covered a decent amount. Unless you had any specific questions, and I'm good to go.
No, man, that was pretty much all I had for today. It's been really nice talking to you, man. Actually, finally having a conversation about fighting games, especially someone with an equal appreciation for MK9. I always have a good talk like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had a lot of fun.
All right, man. Well, this has been great. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop on the record. Everyone, thank you for listening, and hopefully, I'll be back with another one of these interviews talking to somebody that I admire in gaming.
Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I had a good time talking to Under the Mayo, and yeah.
All right, everyone. Later. Take it easy.